intimidation against African Americans for decades. Racial terror pervaded every aspect of post-slavery black life and prevented African Americans from building the same wealth, political influence as white Americans. African Americans face threats of violence when they try to vote. They try to buy homes in white neighborhoods. When they try to swim in public pools. And when they try to assert equal rights through the courts or in the legislature. White mobs bombed, murdered, and destroyed entire towns. While states and local governments ignored the violence, failed to refuse to prosecute offenders or participate in the violence themselves. Racial terror takes direct forms of such physical assaults, threats of injury, and destruction of property. It also inflicts psychological trauma on those who witness the harm and injury. Many African Americans were traumatized from surviving mass violence, with the constant terror of living in the South. Lynchings in the American South were not isolated hate crimes committed by rogue vigilantes, but part of a systematic campaign of terror to enforce racial hierarchy. Racial terror targeted at successful African Americans has contributed to the present wealth gap between blacks and white Americans. While lynching and mob murders are no longer the social norm, scholars have argued that its modern equivalent continues to haunt African Americans today as extrajudicial killings by the law enforcement and civilian vigilantes. Racial terror remains as a tool in other forms of discrimination and control of African Americans, from redlining, segregated schools, to desperate health care, and dramatic bank runs. Let me take a check real quick to see if anybody's in here. Okay. And again, if anybody wants to participate, wants to come in, let me know. I'll send you a link. Just send me a comment. Say what's up. Say what the business is if you're listening. I'll be doing this every day. Just read until I feel like retiring for the evening. So the Ku Klux Klan. Let me see, where I started. California. Supported by the government, ordinary citizens also terrorized and murdered black Californians. The Ku Klux Klan established local chapters all over the state in the 1920s. In that time, California, at the same times, even held more KKK events than Mississippi or Louisiana. Many of the Californians, KKK members, were prominent individuals, well positioned in civil leadership and police departments. For example, in the 1920s, Los Angeles, prominent and numerous city government officials were KKK members or had KKK ties, including the mayor, district attorneys, and police officers. Violence against African Americans peaked in the 1940s as more black Californians tried to buy homes in black neighborhoods. Today, police violence against and extrajudicial killings of African Americans occur in California in the same manner as they do in the rest of the country. Political disenfranchisement, national African Americans have pursued equal political participation since before the Civil War. But the federal, state, and local governments of the United States have suppressed and continue to suppress black votes and black political power after the Civil War. The United States protected the voting rights of the African Americans on paper, but not in reality. During the 12-year period after the Civil War, following Reconstruction, the federal government tried to give newly freed African Americans access to basic civil rights, and by 1868, more than 700,000 black men were registered to vote in the South. During Reconstruction, over 1,400 African Americans held federal, state, or local office, and more than 600 served in state assemblies. However, the progress was short-lived. During the contested presidential election of 1876, Republicans and Democrats agreed to withdraw federal troops from key locations in the South, effectively ending Reconstruction. Southern states then willfully ignored the voting protections in the United States Constitution, passed literacy tests, poll taxes, challenger laws, grandfather clauses, and other devices to prevent African Americans from voting. States also barred African Americans from serving on juries. This is definitely a part where I have thought. So I start thinking about how African Americans become barred from civil activities, rights that are inclusive of the system. Aside from lack of progress and all the other things that are happening, we end up having to stand for these things. And the amount of time that we waste coming together, standing for these small things, voting, equal incomes, those types of things. Then these larger things, homes, land, the right to pursue equity, and all those other things don't come fast enough because we had to waste time on the small stuff. In reality, the original thought process upon birth would actually be the grant of well-being and your right to reach your full potential. Let's continue. This target government action was extremely effective in stripping African Americans of what little political power gained during the Reconstruction era. An example, in 1867, black turnout in Virginia was 90%. After Virginia's voter suppression laws took effect, the number of black voters dropped from 147,000 to 21,000. During the construction, 16 black men held seats in Congress. From 1901 until 1970s, not a single African American served in Congress. It's my Brave app. I get paid for using this app. So, if you're interested in finding out. These government actions returned white supremacists to power in local, state, and federal government. Historians have argued that racist lawmakers elected from southern states blocked hundreds of federal civil rights laws and rewrote many of the country's most important pieces of legislation to exclude or discriminate against African Americans. For example, the New Deal, a series of federal laws and policies designed to pull America out of the Great Depression, created the modern white middle class, and many of the programs that African Americans depend on today, such as Social Security. The New Deal excluded African Americans from its benefits. Historians have argued that the Southern lawmakers ensured that servicemen's readjustment Act of 1944, commonly known as the GI Bill, was administered in the states at the federal government level to guarantee that states could direct its funds to white veterans. Similarly, were secure support of white Southern lawmakers. Congress included segregation clauses and rejected anti-discrimination clauses in the hospital circuit and Reconstruction Act of 1946, commonly known as the Umbrella Act, which paid for our modern healthcare infrastructure. The same tactics were applied to the American Housing Act of 1949, which helped white Americans buy single-family homes. These federal legislative decisions ensuring the government-sanctioned discrimination of African Americans for decades to come and perpetuates the racial hierarchy